This man, God go bless you for staying on the path of truth. If I see person wey talk true, e not be say e dey support Obio, e no dey support Tinubu, e no dey support Atiku, but he's just standing on the path of truth. Which what's the path of truth? The path of the majority, we Nigerians, our feelings, those who they feel, how people say they suffer, how they live, how people say they come out from Nigeria because the system is getting bad. The man stand on the path of truth, and when I hear what the man talk, he said for the past 8 years, Buhari not do anything. And now we want to come out 2 weeks to be a week to. Now when they run, they go everywhere. He said not make sense. They say on our political strategy. He said the same strategy way Buhari used for 8 years. He said the one you say one can enter Jagaban, go still use them. He said Jagaban, in fact, waiting one can inherit as president. He said na kakas. He said nothing there again. He said there is nothing. He said you just they fight for nothing, they spend the money for nothing. He said there is nothing there again for him. He said if he just gets sense, he said the only person will be say man in need or Nigeria need. Now person we want to do the thing for me heart without no benefit, without no power attached to it. Like he just want to do one for me heart. He said Nigeria need. When I listen to this man, the man makes sense. It makes sense well. When I listen, my people, it's gonna be Bod TV. When I not forget to, I'm gonna share this video. I'm gonna like him. I'm gonna like him. Obedient people, I'm gonna like this video. I'm gonna share him. I'm gonna tell you yes. Say, see what they happen. It's better to be informed. Oh. If you're not informed, you're not gonna know what they happen for your country. Not to say not concern. It concern you. It concern everybody in our country. And the prayer we would pray now be say anybody we God no want for there, you not go sit down there. That's it. Go 2 day out for him. He go run, and so it go be. My people, I will soon for my next video. Bye-bye.
Shehu Sania. Senator Sani, thank you very much indeed for joining us. We appreciate the time very much. And let me start by asking you about one of your latest tweets, which I think came out probably yesterday or so, in which you were talking about the spending, the last-minute spending by the administration as their sort of last days ebb away. I mean, can you kind of tell us what you were referring to and your sense of the kind of spending that's going on there?
Thank you for having me in your program. Well, President Muhammad Buhari has spent 8 years in office, and there are two paths to which you can use to measure his achievements. One is putting his own track record in comparison with the one he inherited, and also tallying what he promised and what he delivered. These are two indices. Now, when I tweeted, my tweet is to reflect what is going on presently. For a government that has very few days to live, a lot of things seems to be happening when they should be wrapping up and then working towards a handover to a president-elect who is from their party, but they seems to be doing things which they ought to have done many years or many months ago. At this very hour, you see them awarding contracts in billions of naira, and then they are also sourcing for loans from outside of the country. They are issuing out appointments and employing people and engaging in all sorts of things, which to me, I see it as a trap being set for the president-elect, which is Tinubu, as it is clear. All these last-minute engagements by the president does not seem to go in good path, because spokesperson after spokesperson, they keep telling us that we will miss Buhari, we will miss this government, we will wish that he is in power, as if they are handing power to Labour Party or handing over power to PDP. And when you say we are going to miss the president, when you say we are going to miss this administration, you are more or less predicting doom or telling us what we don't know. So I am saying this last-minute engagement and involvement and activities of this government does not seem to be one that can be said to be with good intention.
Well, in that context, then, when he steps down next week after 8 years in office, I mean, what sort of country do you think President Buhari will be leaving behind for Nigerians?
Well, I must say I pity the incoming president as far as what he is going to inherit as a country. And I know very well that there is going to be a tough time for Nigerians and also for this administration, for the incoming administration. If President Muhammadu Buhari has done what he ought to do years ago, it could have been a smooth sailing for the next president. The next president is inheriting a divided country along sectional, ethnic, and regional line. The next president is inheriting over 77 trillion naira domestic and foreign debt. The next president is inheriting 133 million poor Nigerians. The next president is inheriting uncompleted projects and abandoned promises by this administration. The next president is inheriting a serious security problem that has remained unsolved by this administration. According to recent statistic, which was official, about 63,000 Nigerians were killed in the last 8 years of this administration. Kidnapping is still gone. Terrorists from Boko Haram to ISIS are still operating. So these are the challenges the next president is going to inherit. And meanwhile, remember, is it the IMF World Bank said in the next few months, about 96% of our revenue will be used to service debt. Now, this is what the incoming president-elect is going to face. So this is the kind of country President Buhari is leaving behind. And to me, I think the next president is not inheriting a plane that's on a tarmac, but he is taking over the seat of a pilot while the plane is on turbulence, it's on storm. So I know that things are not going to be easy because some of the hardest decisions this government ought to have taken, they refused to do it at the last minute. They couldn't remove the oil subsidy, which they are leaving it for the next administration. They couldn't conduct the census, they are leaving it for the next administration, and so many things. And you see them giving out contracts, you see them giving out employment letters, you see them sourcing for more loans. When we move from sourcing for $10-20 billion loan, we have gone to $800 million loan, which they have even reached a point that as if the country will not function if we don't borrow. So I think what I have seen ahead is a challenge, a tough challenge for Nigerians. And from what I have read from the president-elect, he has not been enthusiastic in making the kind of false promises that was done in the past, like making $1 to £1 or building refineries every 6 months. And I believe that by the time Buhari leaves power, there will be a lot of revelation as regards to what has actually happened in the last 8 years of this administration. And the best way to do it is for the incoming administration to come out openly and tell Nigerians the truth, what they have actually inherited. But if you cover them, if you try to protect this administration on the ground that you are from the same party, the roof is going to fall on the head of whoever is going to take over power in Nigeria after May 29. So that is my view. They should tell Nigerians the truth of what they have inherited, and if there is a need to immediately set up a committee or panel to probe this administration, all the laws that have been sourced and the projects they have been used for, and how the ministries, department of agencies of this government have been run for the last 8 years, this incoming administration must probe this administration if they are going to have the benefit of doubt and the leverage for them to be able to operate. But if you take over power and say everything is fine and good, then you should know it that you are going to bear the consequences of what will happen after May 29.
Well, I think you're right about the issue of debt, to the extent that when Mr. Buhari took over, debt was around $60 billion, and as he prepares to leave, it's now over $150 billion. But their argument, and I'm not a spokesman for them, but it is only fair to put forward their argument, is that far from this being a borrowing spree, as it's being made out, that first of all, it is within acceptable limits, but also that there have been a lot of gains. A lot of that money has been spent on improving the supply of military hardware to the army, tackling Boko Haram. There's been improvements to the road and rail networks. There's a new port in Lagos, the completion of the Niger Bridge in the southeast, the commissioning today of Africa's biggest refinery, etc. I mean, surely those are a credit to President Buhari.
Well, what I want us to take notice about this administration is that apart from President Muhammad Buhari, the next person that speaks on the economy is simply the governor of Central Bank. It's like he is the prime minister of this administration, and everything about the economy centers around him. A government is supposed to have an economic team, an economic council, in which informed economic decisions are made by experts, by technocrats, by people who know what the economy is all about. But in this administration, who is the star in the economy? None. It's all about the CBN involved in infrastructure, the CBN involved in transport, the CBN involved in construction of bridges, the CBN involved in agriculture. So it's all about, it begins and ends with CBN and the governor of Central Bank. And that is why we're here. Now, it is not simply about you have constructed a second Niger bridge, or you have built roads from Kaduna to Abuja or to Kano or Lagos Ibadan. If those funds, if those infrastructures were executed with public funds and with borrowed money, people need to know how much was borrowed and how much of that money that was borrowed was used for such projects. It's very important. You can't pile up such a debt. Within the last 3 years, the current National Assembly has approved over $30 billion for foreign loan. So is it because we have built bridges and construct roads, so I should not, as a Nigerian, demand to know how much was used? Meanwhile, this money has to be paid. If we are going to pay this money, we need to know the cost of those projects that was done. And that is the first assignment of this administration. And again, you have seen things going on in speed. Approval for spectrum, Ministry of Communication, concession of airports, concession of ports, concessioning of a stadium, concession upon concession. It's all happening within the last few days and few weeks. And mind you, when you are concessioning, you're sitting down with those people from the other side. You are writing agreements, signing papers, legal papers, and then these are the kind of things that happened in the past. We wake up and then we hear that Nigeria has been taken to court in London or in Paris, and we have lost the case, and our account will be garnished with in billions of naira, dollars or pounds or euro. So to me, it's not about you have built roads. You built road with public funds, and you built road with borrowed money from China or Islamic Development Bank of Saudi Arabia or IMF or World Bank or Afrexim Bank. You build roads with money you have borrowed. So we need to know how much of that borrowed money was used for such project. So if you borrow and then you construct a bridge, so what am I going to do? I should thank you for borrowing, or thank you for building bridges, or thank you for borrowing and building bridges, or simply I should thank you for building bridges while I take the brunt of payment of such debt. So that is how a government, you have to answer questions. And one thing which they don't want us to know, they don't want to answer, is the money that was spent on projects. For example, now, in the last 7 to 8 years, over $20 billion was budgeted for defense. But what has it translated to in terms of security in the country? Boko Haram and other terrorist groups are still operating in the northeastern part of Nigeria. In Kaduna here, as we are conducting this review, you can't move outskirts of Kaduna 1 kilometer outskirts of Kaduna for the next 1 hour without getting into the hands of bandits. Even if there is no bandits, you have fear that you will fall into the hands of bandits. What has such money, humongous amount of money that has been budgeted to defense and security, what has it been used for? With all respect, our military have been engaging the terrorists, have been fighting, and I must salute those who have, the families of those whose loved ones have sacrificed their lives for this country. But if you look at the money that was allocated for defense in this country, then you look at the situation which you are in now, then you ask yourself a question. Nigeria's defense budget is 10 to 20 times more than that of Niger, more than that of Cameroon, more than that of Benin Republic. But those nations are more secure than we are. What have we seen? We have seen the army building event centers, the army building hotels, the army building universities, the army building all those things that have nothing to do with security in the country. And the same thing with other paramilitary forces, they're also engaged in building.
Right. I think you certainly have...
So as far as I'm concerned, question need to be asked.
I think you're very correct, Senator Sani, that accountability must be the watchword of any country that wants to make progress. We're fast running out of time, so I'm trying to get to a number of things before we have to go. We've got about 5 minutes or so. In the context of the things that you have said, how can Bola Tinubu reinvigorate this country and inspire many people who have lost faith? People like yourself, arguably, who've lost faith in this country's leadership and its institutions. Briefly.
Well, when you are being given a leadership responsibility like this, it's an opportunity for you to impact on the lives of people who have voted for you and those who have not voted for you. The first task of the president-elect is see how you can unite this country with due respect to what has happened after this 2023 election. The next thing is to have a team that will really work for Nigeria. This idea of outgoing governors, sense of entitlement that they have worked hard for him to be president of this country, and as such they must be appointed into office. He will end up like the Buhari administration, keeping them in power as ministers for 8 years and achieving nothing. The next thing is he must prioritize what he needs to do, not 20 points agenda or 30 points agenda. We have problems with security, he has to address it. We have problems with the economy, he has to address it. We have problems with the educational sector and infrastructure. These are key issues that he has to put on front and then tackle them. And most importantly, electoral reform. Knowing what has actually happened with the 2023 elections. I believe things will get better if we do that. And in every area you get expert. You can't appoint an outgoing governor, a minister, simply because he has claimed to have helped you to win election. If he has done that for the service of the country, then they should be expected to be appointed into any office. If they have done that because they are claiming that they supported him for nationalistic, for patriotic reasons, then there should be no expectation of any appointment. And I know it very well, especially the northern governors. Their own support for him is based on what appointment they are going to get. And if they are not going to get it, they'll go back to whip up ethnic sentiment against him. That's a fact matter. So Bola Tinubu must pick a team that will really work for Nigeria. Not politicians who are simply going to be there for the sake of being appointed into office. I think this is what is very important.
Yes, I would agree, and I'm sure a lot of people would. And in the context of that, of the appointments that you're talking about, can I ask you about the leading spokespersons for Bola Tinubu and the APC, the likes of Fani Kayode, Festus Keyamo, etc., that you've tweeted about, who you and many others have accused of saying the most provocative and extraordinary things. I mean, in the context of what you just told us about appointments, what does that tell you that the president-elect has had to rely on what some would consider to be extremely volatile personalities, it would seem?
Well, you see, I know the mentality of those persons because we come from the same background as activists. We are naturally combative. And as activists, when you find yourself in the position of authority, you find it difficult to adjust to the diplomacy of being in government. But what I just want them to understand is that they are no more in their position, and that it is when they are on the throne, it's natural that whoever takes over the position of leadership, he must be questioned, he must be criticized, and he must be held accountable. So it is the duty of those who are his spin doctors and spokesperson to rather use the strategy of providing facts and details and truth as far as issues are concerned, rather than replying insult and attacks with attacks. I think this is what is most important. But I can understand their situation, but it is not good for now. With regards to all that has happened, what we need is someone who will speak the language that will comfort the heart of people,
right,
and that will calm nerves, and this is what is needed at this time.
Yes. Okay, just briefly, because we've got to go in a minute, and it's been brilliant talking with you as always. I'm sure you've been watching the National Assembly where you served as a senator. How important a factor is it that the opposition have collectively retained control of the House of Representatives and are just 10 senators shy of controlling the Senate as well? I mean, how much is that potentially a recipe for stalemate, or that's not likely to happen?
Well, from my own understanding, what is happening in the Senate, there are three major contenders. You have Akpabio, Yari, and then Uju Uzakalu. Now, they are all from the same party. It is incumbent on the president-elect and his party to sit down and get their acts together, because once they go into an election on the floor with a divided house, certainly the ruling party favored candidate will lose. He will either lose to an opposition candidate or a ruling party member who is rebellious from the decision of the party. As for the House of Representatives is inhabited by younger people who are more rebellious than senators. And the fact of the matter is that it is difficult. It is easier to get the understanding of senators than that of the members of House of Reps, looking at the large numbers and also their age and their background, and many of them their experiences. So it is in the interest of the president-elect and the ruling party to sit down and get the feelings, the views, the opinion, and consult more, and ensure that whoever you are bringing forward will get popular support of others, and also reach out to the opposition is very important. If they make the tragic mistake of going into the National Assembly for the election of principal officers, the Speaker and House of Reps, with a divided House, it will come out with a result which they will be sorry for it. This is my own little knowledge of what is likely going to happen.
Just as we count down to the May 29th inauguration day, which would introduce the government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the conversation around the incoming 10th Senate is still dominating the headlines in Nigeria. Since the All Progressives Congress National Working Committee picked Senator Godswill Akpabio as its consensus candidate for the Senate presidency, some senators have expressed their displeasure with the choice of the ruling party. Weeks back, Senator Ali Ndume, representing Borno South, said that with his experience in the Nigerian parliament, he can be the next president of the Senate, but unfortunately he had no money to share. The question now is the Senate presidency open to the highest bidder? And the fear being expressed by Nigerians about the possibility of a rubber stamp Senate a concern? Joining us on the show this morning to discuss the zoning arrangements of the incoming 10th Senate is Senator Ali Ndume, Senator representing Borno South. He would also be sharing his thoughts on President Muhammadu Buhari's request for $800 million loan to finance the National Social Safety Network program, and also the approval of the Ways and Means advances by the Senate. Welcome to the morning show. Good morning.
Senator, good morning. Good to have you on the program. You say you do not have money.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Senator, you say you do not have money to become Senate president. So how much money does one need to become president of Nigeria's Senate? And how much is whoever you are supporting right now, since you have withdrawn for financial reasons, how much is he spending? How much is being shared?
Well, let me say that good morning, Ruben. It's nice talking to you. It's been a while, a real long time.
Yes.
Well, let me say that it's unfortunate, as everybody has now known, that the Senate presidency or the leadership tussle is more of a money something than capacity, capability, or other qualifications that are supposed to matter most. Having said that, back to what you asked me, truly I'm the one leading the campaign for Akpabio for reasons I've stated earlier, and maybe I should just even state it now, that it is based on the need to have stability, equity, justice, and fairness in the country, considering the heightened concern about some issues, especially the zoning, the religion, and whatever. When the president spoke to me about considering stepping down, coupled with the fact you said I don't have the money to go into this current battle, that money is playing more role than qualification or whatever, I obliged and agreed to work for or to campaign for Akpabio for many reasons. And so far, so good. And us, the stability group, which I lead, is not about money. It's about stability in the country by ensuring that there is fairness, justice, and equity in terms of who now leads or becomes the number 3 citizen. Bearing in mind that the number 1, 2 are all Muslims, and bearing in mind also that the South-South where Akpabio comes from have never since 1999 had a shot of the Senate presidency or even the speakership. So we thought that having Akpabio, with the experience that he has, being one time the minority leader in the Senate and one time minister, a governor, a commissioner, with that kind of experience, and the fact that I think he is the most ranking from South-South, from the senators that we have, especially of the APC extraction, I had no problem with my conscience throwing my weight behind him. And so far, so good.
All right, Senator Ndume, thank you for joining us. I really want to get into this money politics that you allege, because that's huge. You said that not only is vote buying before elections in terms of who gets to be president, who gets to be governor. You say that money politics is also for the Senate presidency, and it is the highest bidder. So are you saying that Senator Godswill Akpabio was one who was able to pay the highest amounts to be zoned and accepted as perhaps from the APC's National Working Committee, the candidate of the APC for Senate presidency? Was he the one who was able to spend the most amount of money? And when you talk about money, like how much was being shared?
Well, I don't know about that, but let me make this clear. If we are sure that we had enough money, if we are talking about the money politics, then we'll not be campaigning. Then we'll not be going around talking to stakeholders, talking to our colleagues, making them understand that money should not be the major determinant, but the important consideration, as I stated, is supposed to be about capacity, capability. Besides that, most importantly, in this country, we look at equity, justice, and fairness. Back to what you are talking about, I said it in several times, that the unfortunate thing that is happening these days is that most of the people that are talking about the leadership, fortunately, one of them was on this year's program, and it's all worldwide now. I don't want to talk about that, but fortunately, people can judge for themselves. But it's not in our camp. It's not money. It's not about money. It's about conviction. It's about trying to convince our colleagues that we need to have somebody from South out as the Senate president, coupled with the fact that the president, the elect, has him as his preferred candidate, and also the party has endorsed the candidate, and we feel that the party, that candidate is equally qualified, that is Okpabio. So it's not about money on our side. It is the other candidates that are talking about money, and the only qualification that they are displaying is the amount of money that they try to, they tell the senators-elect that they can give them. People are talking about figures. Nobody has approached me about money, but definitely if money is going around, and some are talking about 10, 20, 30, even 40, or even more than that. And some are even boasting that they are going to give every senator up to $200,000 or whatever. Figures are flying. That is the truth. I'm not the only one talking about that. And that is honestly very unfortunate.
Okay. Figures are flying around. You are talking about some are boasting they might give up to $200,000. At first, I would like to learn from you because you're a veteran in this business. You got 28 votes in 2019 when you contested to be Senate President. How much did that cost you? That venture cost you? So let me just know a benchmark. I know the money might have increased due to inflation because, you know, as inflation goes up in Nigeria, bribe too increases in number because bribe is also inflation dependent. It's an economy too in Nigeria. So how much did that process cost you?
Well,
and secondly, the second question I'd like to ask you is, okay, answer that first before I ask you the second question.
Well, let me say that if I had enough money that time, I said I would have won. So it was not talking about money. Okay. If I had used money or had money to use that time, my votes would have been more than 28. Those that voted for me, those 28 votes are genuine votes from people that did not vote me because of money. Okay. Because I didn't have the money to throw around or to give at that time anyway.
Okay, so that means the person against you then, Mr. Lawan, had money to throw around. That's why he got more votes, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Lawan.
Yeah. He made not only that he had money to throw around, but he even made money out of it.
Oh, they gave him money too to campaign. Okay. So let me get this right.
Yeah, so many people, there were money.
Okay.
Well, as I told you, it started that time.
Okay, good. So that means if I'm to extrapolate from 4 years ago, what you're saying is that probably two people will be giving Senator Godswill Akpabio money to campaign on this, because you said if Ahmed Lawan can make money out of it, and I'm just making an extrapolation. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. Secondly, I'd like to ask, can you say, hang on a minute, sir. Can you say Godswill Akpabio, with how he ran the NDDC when he was minister, can you say that record can vouch for him to get the position of Senate President? Don't forget, under him, we had fainting Professor Ponde when he was in NDDC. Can you say that record is good enough for him after all the shenanigans that happened in NDDC? Can you say that record is good for him to vouch for Senate presidency?
Well, in the statement you have made, let me say that I am not here to speak on behalf of Akpabio as to all these allegations that are thrown here and there. Every politically exposed person, including myself, if you give my opponent a chance, he will come and say all sorts of things on me. But let me say there were cases, serious cases of corruption and all that during the NDDC. And that has been in the history of NDDC right from the inception. And so Akpabio's time cannot be exception. But you are talking about the MD and then other individuals. I thought you said this is what has been accused, or the accusation of on Akpabio. And even then, even with that, in this country, allegations like this are very common, especially with the politically exposed persons. Until and unless there is clear conviction or evidence beyond reasonable doubt then you have been talking about all this. It's everywhere in Nigeria these days, everywhere. And I told you, there is no politically exposed person, especially if he is contesting like that of Akpabio, that cannot be accused of one thing or the other.
But do you know the same Akpabio you are saying all of this for, that there was a story in March 2022 that says Senate threatened Akpabio NDDC boss with arrest of alleged non-payment of 2.2 billion contracts. And there was also about a talk about not constituting the board. There was a story on the 31st of March 2022 that says Senate threatens Akpabio and NDDC boss with arrest over alleged non-payment of 2.2 billion contracts. There was also the case of the board not constituted for the NDDC all this while. So that's why I say the last position Akpabio held before he's vying for Senate president now is the position that is the overseeing minister of the NDDC. Can you say he has done well enough to be able to now launch pad into the Senate presidency? That's the question I ask you, sir.
Well, Rufai, I don't know what is the relationship between his contest and his performance at NDDC. All I know is that Section 50 of the Constitution says that the senators shall elect among themselves the Senate president. What qualification does he require is that he must be senator-elect, and he is a senator-elect. And also, he couldn't have contested if he had any criminal record or not allegations. As you said, the constitution of the board of NDDC, Rufai, you are just pushing me into a discussion that I really don't want, but because I'm the DG, I have to say this. The constitution of NDDC board is not responsibility of the minister, it is that of the president. Even the recent one that they had and confirmed was sent to us by Mr. President. I think the minister can have some input, but not necessarily a decision on to who becomes what. And also, as you say, he's the overseeing minister. If you say that Akpabio did not oversee NDDC properly, allowing for such allegation, I mean, those allegations are supposed to be directed to whoever was the NDDC MD or chairman or whatever in the board at that time. Not Akpabio. Akpabio was a minister of Niger Delta, not minister of NDDC. NDDC is one of the institutions or agencies of government under his ministry. Well, you can't hold somebody responsible for actions that are not directly under him. And as you said, he is supposed to be a supervising minister. Well, if you say that Akpabio did not effectively supervise NDDC, and then that is also something that can be argued, and, you know, give him, some people would say he has tried, some people would say he has not done anything, and that is normal.
Two things, Senator. Number one, some people have argued that Senator Akpabio is being supported by the Solidarity Group for reasons of religion, and what is called and what is called also balance, regional balance. Akpabio himself has said publicly that nobody should judge him on the basis of his performance in President Buhari's cabinet. So what exactly, beyond religion and regional stability, is he bringing to the table other than this religion and stability? And then secondly, it's related.
No,
Southwest women compatriots, they call themselves, on Monday held a press conference in Abuja, and their main grounds is that they do not think that Akpabio is qualified, or is he a fit and proper person to be president of the Senate, and that if the 10th Assembly goes ahead to choose him, that they will protest naked on the streets of Abuja. What strategy do you have for that? Because women are threatening to go onto the streets naked.
But let me tell you, in Nigeria, you know what's going on. First of all, let me take the first comment. Our decision to support Akpabio is based on my consideration, yes, you are talking about religious balancing, you are talking about zonal balancing, and you are talking about what Opabio needs to bring to the table. In the 10th Senate, we are planning to have Senate president, not senators president. So, in fact, he doesn't need any qualification. What he needs to do is what he has already. He is a senator-elect, he is educated, he can read and write. In the typical situation, the Senate president is just a presiding officer. He has no vote even. The vote can only, his only vote can only count when there is a tie. He's supposed to sit there and preside, not to rule or to take a decision. He is not executive president. He's not going to be executive president of the Senate. He's going to be presiding Senate. He's going to be a senator presiding over his colleagues. And we say he's going to be one among equals, not even first among equal. And if it is that you are considering, the only qualification that Opabio needs to be the Senate president is what he has already, in fact more. One is that he must be a senator-elect. Two, he must be a ranking senator, not a new senator, because if he goes down there, he was a minority leader, he knows what to do from day one. And that is all. And then he needs the acceptability of the senators-elect who are going to vote on that day. And so far, alhamdulillah, we have 70 people that sign or endorse the candidature of Opabio. First on the list is myself, and then last on the list is from Bayelsa. I can tell you that, Abati. Okay. So, and coming to the women, in this country where people take advantage of poverty, tomorrow, as a DG, I can pay for women, not only to demonstrate that they are in support of Opabio, but also to threaten that if Opabio does not become the Senate president, they will also come to the National Assembly and walk naked. That one is normal in Nigeria. It's common. So once you have the money, you can hire women, and I'm sure I can tell you that I did my investigation. Some journalists called me yesterday and asked me what is my response to what is happening that the women. I said, look, I can easily now arrange for 3,000, 10,000 women in Abuja here to come out tomorrow.
All right, Senator
arrange
Ndume.
for that, as long as you have a price.
All right, Senator Ndume. So still back to that money matter where everything is price, what's your cost, or just spending money to win elections. I think it's just important to mention that you put it on record that it doesn't take any qualifications to be the Senate president. Just be a senator-elect. No need to check out, to look at your records. But let me ask you with regards to rubber stamp Senate. What a number of people are concerned about is that they do not want to see...
Let me ask you before I answer that question.
Okay, go ahead.
If you are a senator-elect, is there anything that disqualifies you from being Senate president?
Oh, no, but we're asking in terms of on what record are you campaigning for your candidate, Senator Akpabio, to be Senate president? And you're saying it doesn't really matter in terms of his track record as a minister, as a governor. But I need to move on to the final question very quickly, and then you can respond both of them at the same time.
Wait, now, please,
Senator
let us not deviate from this.
We're almost out of time. Let me just ask the final question, because this is quite important. And then you can wrap up with your statement on the previous session. So it's around the $800 million loan approved by the National Assembly for the President, Muhammadu Buhari. A member of the House Committee on Loans, Aids and Debt Management has said that it has been approved. And what many Nigerians are wondering is that, is this what we should expect in the 10th Assembly, where it is a rubber stamp, and despite criticisms, despite people speaking against that particular loan request, you still went ahead to approve it? What's the justification for that? And what should we look forward to in the 10th Assembly?
Well, you are asking the wrong person. My position on this loan is very clear. And I woke up this morning in order to come and attend this. I thought Nigerians would get something out of it. Let me tell you, The loan issue is something that is in the public domain there. I've even preparing to go to court to stop that if I can. And you are talking to me about what they did in the House of Representatives. I'm not in the House of Representatives. I have stated my reason why I'm against that loan. I'm not against borrowing, but if we are to borrow to consume as they are planning to do now, I'm against it, especially in this case. When you look at the statistics, I have it here. If you borrowed $800 million and convert it at the going rate, official rate is 450, you'll have about 360 billion. If you divide it to their planned number of people that they want to distribute that money to, that is 50 million, a person will go with the 7,200, which is not even enough to buy a bag of rice. By the time they distribute that money, we will be left with nothing but paying for it for the next 40 years, as they said. But if the government is smart enough to say that we borrow this money and divide it by each of the local government, 774 local government, each local government will have at least 116,000 naira. With that, you can build blocks of classroom. With that, you can build primary health care centers. With that, you can buy fertilizer for farmers, and the impact will be felt. But with this, it's just going to be another money down the drain. But even that, you are just about 2 weeks to go, and you are saying that you are borrowing 800 million and going ahead to spend that $800 million in 2 weeks. That I'm totally against. But as I said, this is democracy. Some people can have their way, and I'm having my say on Arise TV this morning. I'm against this loan of 800 million naira, and I was expecting that Nigerians will make their voice known that they are against this the borrowing at this time. Having said that, back to this Akpabio's case, Senate presidency, you should understand, as I said, the main qualification, the only qualification that is required after what he has gone through is for him to be senator-elect, which he is, and he should be a ranking senator because it is in the Senate rule that you must be a ranking senator before you become a Senate president. And for what will happen tomorrow, Ndume doesn't know. Nobody knows. But we have our plans. We have our agenda for the 10th Senate, which will soon unveil, and we are just putting some flesh onto it. And let me also say, this issue of rubber stamp that you are talking about, in American democracy where we are copying, the Senate president is the vice president. The vice president is supposed to be the most loyal person to the president. So when you are talking about it, it's not about personalities. It is about the institution and what they stand for. In this Senate, current Senate now in America, and that is the democracy we are copying. The vice president, this woman is the Senate president, and she comes to vote only when there is a tie because they have 200 senators. So if you have 100 on the other, 100 senators, if they have 50-50, then she will come and cast her vote. But Nigerians, including journalists that are supposed to be talking about what matters, you are talking about trivialities. That is what is bringing this country down.
Bod TV Bod. In case the first time you come here, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more uploads.